Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Gaming Podcast. Once again, I'm Bradley. I'm fresh from being in my dreams and my nightmares across the last week. It's Stu. Why have you been invading my nightmares, Stu?
Because I'm Freddy, and I just do it for fun. I feed off your fear.
Yeah, that's the one. You know that's the one that does get me as well, because
I know.
you can't explain Freddy away like you can any other horror villain.
I know. It has the most logical sense as well as being very, very scary.
Yes. Talking of scary, games can sometimes be scary, and we like to segue into games. So, what have you been playing, Stu?
Smooth. And well, you see, this for the first podcast ever since we started, I have not played a single game this week. Just not a single one.
So, to give some balance to everything, shall I take the first game then?
Oh, it's probably for the best.
And then, yeah, you can tell us a little bit about something. You can tell us a little bit about something afterwards to break up my voice.
Why not?
Give the users, the listeners, something to listen to look forward to. So the first thing I've been playing, again, it's one of my catch-up games, and I think I mentioned it briefly a few weeks ago, and it's Vaporum Lockdown. Possibly butchering the pronunciation, but we'll see. And it's an interesting game, actually. I'm still not 100% sure if I like it, but it's interesting. So, do you know the old dungeon crawlers where it's like you tank controls, first-person tank controls, and you move across a grid kind of thing? And you see them in like probably more modern Japanese, like Demon Gaze style games and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those type ones where you make a step forward and then something else happens. You make a move, something else happens. It does that. It's got an interesting story about a scientist who's trying to survive something that happened. The story didn't kind of stick with me. The text is all really small in handheld mode on the Switch, which is a pain. But trying to survive some disaster that's happened anyway, and you've got to go through this like maze-like thing. It's really, really dark, and it's an RPG, so there's lots of loot to pick up and builds you can get. So you get these like, the only best way I can describe them, you get these suits that are like the armor suits in Fallout. You get those. They each have their own kinds of stats and buffs and so on, and you can upgrade your stats and everything as you go along. Pick up different weapons and manage your inventory. And some weapons are better against some enemy types. Other weapons are, again, against others. And it feels very old school, but with some modern quality of life things going on. My problem with it was I first started this when my vision was still quite poor. And it was just too dark, too much. I couldn't make out enough detail of what was going on. And playing it last week, it was still a bit of that. But what infuriated me more was just I couldn't make out what I was carrying. Honestly, the text is just too small. It looks like it was made for PC first or a big console, ported onto the Switch without any effort being put into accessibility, which is a shame, because one of the things I liked about playing games like Demon Gaze wasn't the aesthetics, because, dear Christ, that gets you put on a register. But the movement through those dungeons, I like the movement through the dungeons and the encounters, but I can't do turn-based RPG very well. So this is more real-time tactics in a way. So if you see an enemy, they'll have a certain move pattern and you can move around them to get better attacks at them, or if you get it wrong, they can attack you. You can be quite overwhelmed in places and you die a lot. It's not roguelike or roguelite or anything like that. And the game encourages you to do a lot of saving. It lets you save almost anywhere. So that's a thumbs up accessibility option there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an odd game that I'm kind of wanting to push through and enjoy, but just I don't know. I don't want to be down on it because it's doing a lot of good things.
Yeah.
But it's not grabbing me the way I hoped it would.
Yeah. Or maybe the apocalypse was caused by the world losing its ability to have decently sized text.
Yeah.
Because that would cause absolute chaos and pandemonium. So
well, yeah, I'd be buggered if I had the codes to stop the nuclear meltdown and it was on a Switch screen.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Tiny. That's it. World is ended. Nothing you can do about it.
I get they want to fit it all in the same thing, but there's got to be something now. And I don't want to keep So the Switch has the inbuilt magnifier, which is good, but it takes you out of what you're doing too much. So it needs something just to improve text size and add scrolling boxes. It's stuff you can do in basic HTML, so they must be able to add it in like text boxes within a game.
It does seem like a very strange thing not to do. You know, I mean, how lazy do you have to be, or like how ignorant of the reception it's going to have do you have to be to not realize that it's completely illegible on a 5-inch screen? Do you know what I mean? So that's a very, very strange one. And like you say, zoom is all right, but you still need to have a game built. You know, that's the kind of last gasp, desperate measure, isn't it? It's not a design feature kind of thing.
No, so this is really weird because for me, overall, it's the story's actually fully voice acted at the same time, so you get the story beats. But it's the flavour bits and the information about weapons and armour that really, where you need the text.
Yeah.
So it's such a good game. But again, I think I'd rather play it on a big screen. But there's a personal nature to it that makes it ideal for the Switch. And I don't know. I don't want to dump on it, but I'm just not enjoying it like I'm hoping I would. And I feel really bad saying it because a lot of love and attention has definitely gone into this game, but it's just one of those. I think it's just not for me.
Yeah. And I guess that the problems of the game will be exacerbated by the fact that you physically can't enjoy it as much simply because of the text issue as well.
Yeah.
Which is something that they could easily have avoided. So that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah. And I say, I know you mentioned it, and I'm not picking you up on this, but I wouldn't say it's lazy. I think it's just the biggest oversight that I would say 9 out of 10 developers make on the Switch. They kind of do it all. They must play test it because they know what it all is. They're probably not seeing how bad that text is. Because it's not, if this was just 1 or 2 developers, I would be going, this is just not on. It's not on every 1 in 3 games out there, probably.
Which makes it even more strange rather than less, doesn't it? You know, it's like, why is there not just when you get the development kit, you know, it's like, a big sticker stuck on the front of it going, don't forget to make the text size bigger. So
one game I'm looking forward to on the Switch when it finally hits is Disco Elysium. Now, originally, I wasn't looking forward to playing that on the Switch at all. I was going to try and force my way through PC version only. But one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to this now, it's going to have lots of text. I still think that's going to have the tiny text issue, but it's fully voice acted. Every single little iota of it is fully voice acted. So that's going to counter that. So I think if you can go that route, and not everyone can, where you can fully voice act everything, that kind of counters it a little bit. But again, with a game that's Disco Elysium coming out, a big indie developer, we'll say, behind it, a big, like, who's probably earned their money from the game already. Let's see if they can maybe get those accessibility options right for the Switch.
Yes, let's hope so. Yeah, because obviously, if they do it, if the game's fully voice acted, and they still neglect the text, then that discomforts deaf gamers or hearing impaired gamers. So let's hope. Yeah.
One day, maybe we could drill down into the issue. Segue.
Oh, segue. So yeah, I can see where you're going with this. Yeah, I have played, not this week, but at some point in the not too distant past, Mr. Driller Drill Land, which I think I mentioned briefly. Yeah. I still not played a load of it, but what's interesting about it is Mr. Driller is just like you drill down and you've got to make sure you don't get crushed, as 1, and 2, that you don't run out of air. Now, Drill Land, which I didn't even know, and it's been out for 20 years, something crazy, is that you have like boss fights and you have multiple routes and you have warp points and all sorts of stuff, power-ups, pickups, and it's like, okay, that's a bit bananas. So, because it looks visually, pretty much identical to the original game, but it's got all this extra stuff going on. So I have no idea how I managed to evade it impinging on my consciousness that it was a properly really different game, but it did. And yeah, it's really good, and also a good example of where do I take my franchise now? So you got Tetris, which you pretty much perfect on your first swing. You kind of knock it out of the ballpark, and then it's like, where the blooming heck do we go from here? And it's a good answer to that. It shows a good way of expanding things without losing the core fundamentals that made the game fun in the first place, but expands it without just making it pointless guff like, I don't know, Super Monkey Ball 2.
And yeah, most Super Monkey Ball spin-offs, yeah.
All Super Monkey Ball spin-offs, yeah.
But yeah, no, Mr. Driller has been a quite a favourite franchise of mine over the years. I've played sort of like Mr. Driller, Mr. Driller 2, Mr. Driller Drill Land on its first time round, Drill Spirit, Mr. Driller Versus, I think, was the last one I played before this release, and a couple of Japanese only versions that I got via ROMs and stuff like that. And it's a really interesting concept. It's very simple. You drill down. It's most simple. That's it. And as I've always said, puzzle games, that's what you need. A simple concept that's easy to play, difficult to get the best out of. And Mr. Driller does that. I've never been good at Mr. Driller. But it really doesn't matter because it's got that one more go thing going on. You can spot the mistakes. You can spot where it's coming in. You get those panic-inducing moments, but you always die and go, right, I'm going back again. I'm going to get through to that next proper marker and stuff like that. And yeah, Drill Land is absolutely fantastic, and the remake of it is absolutely outstanding as well. I've hammered that on the Switch for a little bit. I might go back this week.
Yeah, no, it's good when they do that. Yeah, it's so easy to go wrong. It probably helps that they've not absolutely flooded the market with sequels for it. There's not actually been that many over the course of so many years. Yeah.
No, I mean the last main one was I'm going to put this, which I believe was Mr. Driller for Kakao, which was a iPhone game in South Korea. That was the last sort of like full release there was. You've actually got to go back, I think, to, I'm going to say 2008, possibly, for Mr. Driller Versus.
Yikes. Yeah.
Which was a Japan only. I think the last Western proper release, probably the DS versions. It was probably like Drill Spirits was the last proper Western release. So it's not had a major following outside of Japan, but I think it's just one of those games. It's so unique looking and colourful looking that you kind of look at it and go, oh yeah, I'll give that a go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly not an easy game. It starts on, it starts hard and only gets harder from there. Yeah.
It's a weird thing to have some knowledge on, by the way. It's just some random Mr. Driller games.
Yeah, that's a good one to have.
Yeah. I'll take that on to one day. That'll be a chase question one day, and I'll nail that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So what else have you been playing this week?
So it's another one where it's a catch-up game. It's almost a really good segue, actually, because the game's called Summer Catchers. That was an unintentional segue. This one, again, it's another one where it's left me a little bit cold and disappointed from what I was expecting from it. And what you've got here is an endless... Is it an endless runner? I don't want to call it an endless runner because it's more than being an endless runner. So what you've actually got here is a story-based game that is part endless runner, part puzzle game, part resource management. And you basically play as this character who's never ever seen the summer, lives in a winter world, and wants to go and see like the sun and things like that.
So he's British then?
Yeah, looks more Canadian, I would say, but we'll see. I think they describe it as the frozen north or something like that. Anyway, and you meet a bear in the woods, and he doesn't shit.
That's strange.
So, does a bear in the woods? Apparently not.
It's the Pope, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the Pope who does that in the woods. Yeah.
But what he does do is he builds you a lovely little wooden car that allows you to drive from the wintry woods of the north, wherever you are, and fight your way to the summer, taking on various bosses and stuff like this in this car. And basically the way you do it is, if you've ever played the runner games, what are they called? Bit Trip Runner, sorry. If you ever played those, there's a bit of that in there, but you're in a car.
Yeah.
And you get various tools. So you get like rockets, that will help you like go up hills quick. You get things that will help you jump, things that will help you cut down trees, things that will help you barge through things, and then you collect these mushrooms as you go in, and they give you use those to spend points on getting new items and so on and so forth. And on the whole, it should be a really good, fun, casual game. And the concept is it's got some like mini game puzzles that break things up here and there, and it's just a really nice game. However, there's two things that really stressed me out with this game that stop me really enjoying it. One is that at any one time you can only have 3 items on the screen to choose from, and you don't know what's coming up. So there's a lot of RNG and a lot left to chance as you go.
Right.
So you just don't know what's going to be there. So you might have like a jump, and a rocket boost, but there's a tree coming up. So you need to kind of use an axe to swing that down, but you can't. So you go, right, I'll quickly get rid of the other items and see if I can get what you might not, because it's RNG. And you might waste those items and then be left without what you need to finish your run. And I get what they're going for there, but it leaves too much to chance, and it got frustrating more than going, oh, never mind, we'll go again. It got more frustrating than anything because there was so much seemingly out of my control.
Yeah.
And the other thing, you've got these 3 items you can choose from, but instead of having each of those items on a hot button, so like A for the top one, B for the middle one, and X for the bottom one, you've got to kind of press up and down on the D-pad and then select it with A. And that just doesn't feel really intuitive to me.
That seems really weird.
And I did wonder why they can't just have, because the car just goes. You can't control the car in terms of its speed or anything like that. It just goes. So why they couldn't just let you have all the things you've bought on the screen, each with a various button prompt. Because you can take as many as you want. You could almost I think it's up to 9 items you can take with you. So you could do that on, I don't know, L2, R2, L1, R1, so on and so forth, and cover most of those. So I don't know. It seems to be a good idea that's aimed at casual players, but requires a lot of min-maxing to get the best out of it, which casual players aren't going to do.
Yeah.
And do you remember Jetpack Joyride?
Well, of it, but I didn't ever play it.
It's similar to that, where it's an endless runner, and what you collect can be used to get more upgrades and make things better for you to take with you. And it does that kind of thing really well. And I think this would be a great upgrade to that sort of game, but just misses the mark, unfortunately. And again, it's another game where I don't want to dump on it because, again, so much love has gone into this game. But there's just, let's say, those 2 things just really made me go, I'm done with this now.
Yeah, well, I mean, being critical of a game doesn't necessarily mean being mean, does it? It's just that you're being honest, and it sounds like you've certainly tried your best to get the most out of it. But if it's got sort of fairly glaring flaws like that, it can be really hard, especially as it's a fairly simple genre anyway.
Yeah, you know me. I will always go to bat for an indie game as well.
Yeah.
I think again, it's not a bad game. We're not talking about a badly made game. So again, it's why I don't ever want to be harsh on things like this. But yeah, I mean, it's about a tenner, I think, which I think is too much for what this actually is.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you could pick this up in a sale for a couple of quid, it's a nice time waster. But beyond that, unfortunately, no. Lovely art style, though. Sorry, I must point that out. Always to finish on a good thing. Absolutely gorgeous pixel art style.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah. It takes you a long way, I think. I mean, I really couldn't stand Hyper Light Drifter, and for sort of similar reasons for what you've been mentioning in a way, in that it felt like they were going for something, but that made the controls deliberately awkward. Like to try and add to the difficulty, but I think they think they were making it more sophisticated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I've seen that before with games where it's gone. You don't need not everything needs to be Dark Souls-ized.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it could just be that I don't get it. and because it doesn't click with me. And a really good sort of counterpoint to that is Ghost Runner, which I would praise to the high heavens, and was pretty one of my games of the year last year. But loads of people will go, well, that's just not designed properly, even though it is. And I'm there going, Hyperlight Drifter not designed properly, and people going, oh, you're just rubbish then, aren't you? And that's fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I love Hyperlight Drifter. I think personally, I really enjoy playing it. But yes,
so there you go. Exactly. It just it is a personal thing. But that shouldn't stop you being honest about it. About your feelings about it. Definitely, it doesn't mean that you're just dumping on it.
No, and it is something that does become very hard to do. I can deal with criticism. People turn around to me and go, turn around and went, "Oh, the podcast's awful. I don't know why you bother, Brad, or why you even writing." Or I can deal with that. Really doesn't bother me. I can deal with horrible comments on Twitter, YouTube, comments in posts and things like that. Does not bother me. But I cannot dish it out. I'm almost like the opposite of things like that, where I can take criticism. I don't like dishing it out in a nasty way. Again, I will recognise, like, for example, Ubisoft games, and we'll mock them a bit, and by disdain for the actual company, but I still maintain they are still some great games they make, and love and attention goes into from the developers' side, and the mechanics are all spot on. But yeah, I can't just go all in horrid on a game unless it's Sonic 4 Episode 1. Which deserves everything it gets.
Yeah, I don't think since we've started that we've gone all in on a game and just ripped it to bits. Even the stuff that we don't take to. Yeah, no, I'm the same. I'm like, no, I don't play Call of Duty, but, that's because it doesn't click with me. It's not me saying it's a garbage game sort of thing. And I think when the worst that you can say about an Assassin's Creed, other than obviously, when you get the weird glitches that make skeleton faces appear, is that there's a little bit of it's a bit repetitive, then that's not that bad a criticism really, because there's still loads of good stuff in it. So yeah.
But I think that comes down a lot of it, the way I was probably bullied at school and the way I dealt with now learning that I've got ADHD and things like that. So maybe that comes from why I won't do that. But anyway, moving on. I have been playing one other game, and it kind of took over a little bit, and it kind of put Subnautica on the back burner for a little while. So I've got to get back to that next week, so I can talk more in depth about that game, because that's wonderful. But I've been playing SnowRunner again, which I actually reviewed in text for the PS4 version on the site back in, I want to say 2020 sometime, April maybe, I don't know. Something like that. I should check these things before I talk about them.
No, that'd take away all the spontaneity.
And you make me sound like I know what I'm doing, and I don't.
Yeah, well, that's part of my job, isn't it? To make it look like we're professional when we're not.
Mark Kermode, I'm not. But yeah, I've been playing more of that on the Switch this time. I've said before, this, Stu, and regular listeners will know this. I'm blind to frame rate drops here and there and poorer graphics. Does not bother me one iota. And I'm sure SnowRunner on the Switch looks nowhere near as good as SnowRunner on the PS4 or the Xbox Series or the PS5. But no one knows what it looks like on the PS5 because no one's got one.
Precisely.
But yeah, I'm sure it looks nowhere near as good, but it plays well. It plays as well as I remember on the PS4 from last year. And the reason I want to talk about it is not to talk about the aspects of gameplay as such, or what it does well in terms of graphics, or it's great that it fits on a Switch. I've seen a lot of people going, "Oh, I don't get it," and it's the intro into it's too much, and it's I should make it more accessible, and I'm usually all for that. But the original release of SnowRunner, and even more so the Switch version, is ideal for me and my brain. I'm playing it, and I can do it in very small segments, and it's very clearly marked in terms of, here's your quest, these are where your quest markers are, and then it's up to you to get to them. I like that. I like when there's a quest marker and it goes, off you go. And that tells you that's where the quest marker is, and you can explore, but you can always find your way back by using that quest marker. Because I love exploring in games, but what I don't like sometimes, and what gets sometimes overwhelms me. It does it. I think Skyrim does it, Fallout does it, and it overwhelms me. Is when you play those games and you go on a bit of a wander, and then you get loads of little markers come up, and you like side quest markers and points of interest, and by the time you know it, you've spent 3-4 hours just wandering about getting you quest markers, and what was I doing?
Yes, yeah.
Well, it's even worse probably because I kind of got too far away now. I don't want to play this at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I completed Fallout 3. Honestly, I really am. Which shows how good a game it was more than anything. Whereas this, it kind of goes, it lets you wander off the beaten track and you can do these things, but it still keeps the main quest markers as the main thing. And I really like that. And it's slow, it's methodical, it explains everything in a certain way. It doesn't talk down to me, but it doesn't make things too difficult to understand either. And yeah, for me, it's just a really good example of what a good ADHD game is. I've spoke before whereby I've said, oh, games are too overwhelming, or they don't give enough information, or I need reminders of what I'm doing. And this does it in a really subtle way. It's not constantly going, go here, go here, go here, go here, but it will prompt you up quite a lot of this is how you bring up all-wheel drive, or this is how you use the crank. These are the button prompts for it. It adds challenge into it, but you've got the options there to take the challenge out if you want and make it a much more casual experience. And it just works for me. It's one of those things I can't explain why, and it's frustrating at points. And I've seen people talk about when you get frustrating things, that must be hard with ADHD, and it's sometimes it's not, because you've got to do problem solving, and problem solving is great. I love problem solving. It's why I like puzzle games, I think. And SnowRunner is very much a puzzle game in a weird simulation setting. And I might go into more detail or speak about it a bit next week when I've spent more time with it again. But yeah, it's just I don't want to say there's a perfect ADHD game, but it's one that really just speaks to me and hooks me in every single time I've played it. So yeah, wonderful. If anyone does have a game that they feel really hits with them for whatever reason that others don't, then do let us know on Twitter, Discord, email, or wherever. But yeah, not always like most games where they're like signed as, oh, these are great for mental health. This is one of those where it's not designed for mental health, but it just works for it.
Yeah. You might like Bravely Default to them because that always signposts the main quest, and it doesn't sort of force you to go straight for it. But at the same time, it allows you to go for it if you want. But then obviously, because it's a JRPG, you do have to do some grinding, but the grinding isn't a crazy amount. And also mostly just getting from A to B will give you the stats you need. So it's really well balanced. So even though it doesn't do anything fantastically original, it's comforting and comfortable in that way, which, like you said about Skyrim and Western RPGs, they're not designed necessarily for you to be comfortable. They're designed for them to be surprising, for you to turn a corner and not know what's going to be there. So you could have a vast empty plain that takes you 10 minutes to walk across, or you could walk into a circle of vampires who are doing a ritual, and so the trade-off there is that obviously you're not getting the surprise element, but you are getting a comforting experience that you know that you can enjoy and not get lost.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Bravely Default, if someone can mod it to be set in London and give everyone real jobs and stuff like that I understand, then I'd be all over it.
Yeah, the job classes.
Yeah. A builder, a baker, and not a candlestick maker, because that's not a real job.
No, not anymore.
Never was. It just rhymed.
That's true. Yeah. Low effort. Definitely very low effort. Yeah.
Yeah. If they made that rhyme for a Switch, the text would be tiny.
Oh, there you go.
That was a poor joke. So poor, in fact, I'm going to take a step back, pass over to you, Stu, and put people out of their misery.
Well, I'm not going to murder them, but yeah, no,
I've already done that with my talking.
Hey. Yeah, just a short one this week because I've not had a chance to play anything and I'm very, very tired and it's been a hard week. We'll probably talk about that on the podcast next week. And we're very conscious of getting back to more mental health discussion. And it's all really been the fault of me getting a new job and having much more sort of punishing hours. So we will get to it though, I promise. But in the meantime, yeah, as usual, follow all our content on the website and on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. If you can support us financially, we're on Patreon, or you can drop some money on Coffee. You can also send in any thoughts, any feedback, any questions to the email podcast@mentalhealthgaming.com. Otherwise, have a great week. Let's hope the weather's better. Look after yourselves and stay safe.